morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it is the 12th day of April 2024. Welcome to our show today. This is going to be a short show today because I've got another appointment to go to after 10 o'clock. So I'm out of here at 10, just so everybody knows. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on my wonderful hostesses, Karen the Riveter and Ralph the IT guy. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good morning.
Good morning. Did you just call Ralph a hostess?
Yeah, co-host and co-hostesses. Co-hostessi. I don't know. I need some more coffee. That's clear. You know, it's coffee time with my little Hecklefish mug right there. I love that guy. He's so funny. And I decided to do so. I've got my little Hulk mug right here because the Hulk is like my spirit animal. And so
speaking of Hecklefish, I heard the other day, I haven't looked into this, but I heard somebody flew a drone over to Mel's Hole.
Yeah, I saw that too. So I look at everything. So I get dinged and questioned on all of this. It's like, you're talking to that person or this person or the other person. And you know what? When they always say it, they look like a bunch of trolls. It's funny. It's funny because they're trying to divide, right? So yes, I listen to absolutely everything out there. Do I believe everything? No. Do I believe what's the percentage of anything that I, Donna Brandenburg, believe? I don't even know. It's probably less than 90% of what I hear anywhere. Do I believe? I just believe about 90% of what I hear out there. But I talk to everybody and then I look for nuggets and then I try to research. So there's this thing out west called Mel's Hole, and somebody came up lately and said that they flew a drone down into Mel's Hole and what they found was terrifying. So that goes back to Bat Boy and some of the other stuff that's out there that people really like sensational news, and instead of just listening to information based on
don't besmirch Bat Boy. Weekly World News is still around.
Right. It's like, I don't know. And so is Scott McMahon. So there you go. Bat Boy.
The world's only reliable news source.
Yes. Oh, you know what? I got to make a quick text. So talk amongst yourselves just a minute. We're waiting for Dr. Kent to come on here. It's going to be a great show this morning. But I do have to, I buy groceries for several families and make sure that they have groceries, delivered and such. So I have my delivery method that just texted and said that they're on their way. So I better respond here. I'm going to have anarchy in the house here.
Yeah, all I heard was about that somebody had done that with Mel's Hole, flew a drone to it. But then I was wondering, wait a minute, nobody knew where Mel's Hole was. So how could they possibly fly a drone there? I haven't looked into it at all. I've been too busy, but got to look into that one of these days.
Yeah, it's kind of
story at any rate.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing, but I actually look at everything because, if we don't look at everything, we're censoring, we're self-censoring. And why would we be afraid to look at anything? We need to be looking at anything. Well, anyhow, with that said, I'm going to bring on our guest this morning, Dr. David Kent. And morning, Dr. Kent. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us today. David and I have been talking for a long time, guys, and we had this wonderful conversation about him coming on, and I thought it was Friday, and I think I must have missed communication somewhere along the line, but I'm glad that you were able to come on today. So welcome to our show. So this is real news for real people by real people at the kitchen table, sort of. This used to be my kitchen, but we printed it off, and I've actually got a studio now, which is pretty fun. So we've been talking about all those things that we need to questioning the narrative. And I think that this is yesterday we were doing off the grid communications and how we can set up communications without being dependent on the system, and different strategies for getting off dependency on the system. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say in regards to, say, like first aid, or just talking about what's happened in the past in the medical community and such, and hear your perspective on, kind of what's going on out there.
Well, what's going on out there? I guess we could start with that. I don't know. I'd say it's scary. If you have to go into a hospital these days, I just hear so many stories of people just being mistreated, poorly diagnosed. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Yep.
And poor diagnosis. Doctors that, two types of doctors. One, older doctors, that have been in practice for, 15 years, 20 years plus, that just absolutely hate their jobs. And younger doctors that are just really poorly trained. Like, it's unbelievable. Just like younger people are in society these days, a lot of people. So it's scary in the hospital.
Do you think that they put them on? Do you think the doctors are trained anymore just to put them on? This is what my experience has been, and I'm not a big doctor person, but I like you because you're not really a traditional doctor person either.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's like there really are some wonderful healthcare professionals and doctors that are out there that are they're not drinking the Kool-Aid, and you're one of them, and I really appreciate that about you, to to have honest discussions about things. But what I see, I take care of my mom. My mom's older, and she's really got some complicated issues. And what I see is that by and large, they're really not trying to solve the problem. They're looking at the protocols that are outlined by the insurance companies. And I think it seems like that's what's being designed into the training and such. So they know that they're supposed to go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're dead. Yeah. Goodbye. Check out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Donna, you're so intelligent. You get it. That's exactly the way it is. They're following protocols, and they can't think on their own. I'll give you an example. Our daughter had a problem with her vision, woke up one morning, and her eye was turned out to the one of her right eye, and she had diplopia, which is double vision, and it's kind of an emergency, and we didn't know what was going on. And I took her to see a friend ophthalmologist who freaked out and sent her to a neurologist, and we actually had a couple emergency MRIs, and the doctor finally comes in and everything is pretty much negative, can't find anything. I'm like, so should we treat her with some steroids? And he looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, what's going on? He says, well, I don't have a diagnosis. How can I treat her? I'm like, I didn't say anything to the guy because I didn't want to piss him off. But I'm like, I did treat her, and she got better with some steroids, because that's how you treat, an unknown, something with the peripheral nerve or a cranial nerve. Usually we give them steroids. That was practicing medicine. When I was younger, we taught to practice. You always try something, just send somebody home. But that was a typical young guy. He's following some kind of protocol. And protocols are fine to help you with your diagnosis, but you still need to use your common sense. And it's like, that's what's missing.
Well, it
and
seems like
there are
more
some really great doctors. There are great doctors out there. I know doctors, from my generation that still love medicine, a very small number of them that still love practicing medicine, taking care of people. But I think the system's designed nowadays to make it into a really terrible profession. And as you know, leadership comes from the top down. And if the doctors are leaders in the hospitals, which is questionable these days, it could be some business guy, but it just permeates everywhere. And if they're upset and unhappy with their jobs, they take it out on the patients and the other employees, and it just spreads down all the way down to the janitor. And go in the bathrooms in a hospital, they're disgusting. So that's kind of like the state of medicine, I'd say, right now. What was the second? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense, because I think there's so much going on that's just, it's all about money. It's really not about care and or
Yeah.
the person. And then, there's two sides to every story, because not only is this affecting the patients, but I have to believe, having worked with a lot of different professions over the years in doing corporate strategy, as well as just in a myriad of roles, let's put it that way, that there's always two sides to the story. So generally people get into professions where they're working with their hands because they really want to be helpful. They know what they're doing and such. But then once they get into a system, they realize it's not all that it's cracked up to be, and realize that a lot of these professions are just driven by money. I would say that I could rattle off quite a few of them, because when I was working with some issues or some projects in the hospice industry, what I noticed is that the people that were working on the floor, that were taking care of people, that were doing absolutely everything they did, they were burning themselves out because they cared so much. But when you got into the administrators and the administrator roles, they were finding ways to take money off to the side through these NGOs. And it was absolutely a disjointed, it was a fractured way to function.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that's happened in medicine as well. Doctors make less and less. They still make a very good living, compared to other standards, but, they make less and less. So they have to see more and more. Basically it's a job where you trade hours for dollars. So I do understand that. And there's a lot of pressure on the doctors to produce. It's more about production than quality.
I would love to see local doctors. Remember when we were kids, there were doctors that were practicing in the community, and they practiced how they saw fit. They knew the patients, and sometimes they would even make house calls in order to, if they knew somebody was really ill and such. And I think that's my guess is why most people go into the profession of being a physician.
Yeah, of course. I always tell young people thinking about medicine, I say, don't go into it for the money. You really got to love people. Even if you're not directly in patient care, you're still working with a lot of people. And it's tough to have. It's tough these days to create a relationship with a person. Hey, you're lucky to even see a doctor these days. Seriously, you can go in and be treated usually by a physician assistant or a nurse or some other type of non-physician medical specialist, and they're good, but you want a doctor. My doctor actually just retired, and my doctor we trained together in residency.
Wow.
He's not even 60 yet, and he's out. So
Yeah.
it's just and so many people have left the profession. So many really good doctors.
Do you know a bunch of doctors personally that have left the profession?
I know a few of them. Yeah, and they're more and more leaving. My age. I'm almost 60, and they're leaving or trying to find alternative income streams, things like that.
That's really too bad. So can we talk about today? We've been doing off the grid because I firmly believe that we're going to see some sort of a crash. It is not sustainable financially. When you look at all the financial indicators, it is not sustainable for the way that for the long game here in the United States, where we're set up to have a crash that's worse than 29. And I think that that's a significant thing for people to keep in mind, is that we've all gotten so dependent on the system that I really think that we need to kind of equip ourselves so that we're not so dependent. So if all these structures just kind of like poof go away someday, or there's some chaos there, that we're kind of prepared. So we talked about a little bit at home or off the grid. I just call it all off the grid stuff. So off the grid first aid. Now I could bring up anything online that you would like to. So if there are some first aid kits that maybe would be, yesterday we were on Amazon spooking around on Amazon trying to find some really good options for first aid? Would you like me to bring anything like that up, or do you have anything in mind, or what are the basics that people should have on hand?
Well, since I didn't prepare anything today,
That's okay.
by the way, everybody, I'm a facial plastic surgeon, so I do facelifts or did facelifts. So it's not, I'm not in the emergency medicine realm, but back when I trained, I did train in everything. So back in the good old days, they created a doctor first, then the specialist. So, so Donna, I guess, there's a lot of things you got to think about. And I'd say the first thing is, and I'm kind of winging this, is you should find a doctor that lives near you, maybe like walking distance if possible. I live in the suburbs of Detroit, so there's doctors around me. I'm a doctor. We created a local group, like you had mentioned, doing about a year ago, and I have a few friends. They know to come to me if there's an emergency or they probably can't call me, but they know where I live, so they're welcome to come here. It'd be a good idea, but obviously some people, depending on how bad the crash is, and if you're able to drive somewhere, you may not have access to a doctor. I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know.
No, nobody knows. We're just going to any scenario so that if something does happen, we have the ability to be prepared. But that's a really good point, is find out who your neighbors are, and do you have somebody in the neighborhood who's a doctor or a nurse, or that could help in the event of a tragedy. Yeah,
exactly. Any type of medical issue, it'd be good to run it by somebody, even if they won't help you. But most people will help other people, I think, in an emergency like that. I guess, the next thing that comes to my mind are medications. Everybody's on, not everybody, but most people are on, I forgot the statistic, but like 6 medications.
Are you serious?
Some more. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. People are on a lot of medications these days. I'm curious what your listeners say about that.
Well, I don't. Let me see.
I can look up the number, but they're on a lot of prescription medications.
Well, this is the beauty of this show, is we just talk off the cuff, and quite honestly, none of us prepare getting online. So
good. Okay.
This is the free flow of information here. This is not welcome to Brandenburg News Network. Here's our point. Yeah, that doesn't happen here. We might talk about like the craziest. What's the craziest stuff we've talked about, Karen, Ralph? We've talked about some crazy stuff. Random.
Well, I can offer that. I've been to let me pause for a second. Quiet. Regular medical professionals lately, besides the natural type that I've also you were correct. I haven't seen a doctor. I've seen other professionals that work with a doctor. But anyway, I'm in my 40s. My husband's older, and they're like, "You're not on any medications?" they're like completely shocked that I'm pharmaceutical free. They just can't believe that.
Good for you.
We talked about that yesterday, what you just said about checking with your neighbors. We spent some time talking about that. I have a nurse in my neighborhood.
Oh, good.
But I also have first aid, CPR, AED training. And in fact, I used to be certified to teach it. So I have lots of training, and I put my first aid stuff in a backpack. Mm-hmm. And so the story I told yesterday, where a neighbor's truck alarm was going off, I grabbed my backpack and ran. And where we live, it's kind of a busy road, and there tend to be some accidents right around this corner. And so sometimes I'll grab my backpack and run out to the road, because you just never know. And then I'm prepared for some of the basic type of injuries that you might see there. So as an example, one little piece of advice I have, You don't have to go through the Red Cross, but they do have a little booklet, and it's free or cheap. If you take a course, you'll get it. At least they did years ago. You can get a basic first aid booklet inexpensively, and everybody should have one of those in their homes. And you can train with anybody and have some first aid, and then your neighborhood has you as a resource.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Here's an idea where we're talking, David. Would you be able to teach a first aid class?
Yes, of course.
Oh my gosh,
not a certified one, but I could teach a common sense one.
Well, I think common sense rules over certification.
Yeah.
The certification is for most of this stuff is just nonsense. Like, we're all certified in ham radio. We've got our license in it. And I'm going to tell you what, that is the dumbest process I've seen in my life. It is a stupid process. And I'll tell you why. They give you this test. And I went to this class, right? And I'm thinking, okay, I got all the questions, because there's like 500 questions that you should be able to answer. And you know what I was told? Memorize, don't understand the principles, memorize the questions and answers, because, and it's like, so I show up at this class, 8-hour class. I'm not kidding you. And I'm expecting to be taught. And they're like, this is like study hall. You know, we're giving you 8 hours to sit here and read through the questions that you should have already had ahead of time. Most people did, and sit there in silence for 8 hours. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah, no, with ham radio, it's more or less just kind of like a regulatory hurdle. And even the people that are, kind of like veteran hams are like, yeah, this is kind of pointless, because you're not going to learn anything from learning all of these questions and answers. This is just to get you your license, and then you can get into the ham radio community, and we'll teach you as you go.
And I don't mean to step on anybody right now, but I got to tell this story because it's pertinent. And this is what we do, David, is we get off on these rabbit trails, and I get off on the rabbit trails, okay? But I actually, being in the pipeline industry, we have to have training like all the time, okay? We all the time have to have training. We go on a new job, we get training, blah, blah, blah. It's an ongoing thing. So I go out to Connecticut, and we had a job out there in Connecticut, and it was a nice job. It was a huge job, but it was a decent sized job, and it went through some forested area. And so I show up, and honest to God, I had to go through turtle training. Okay. So I show up at the job trailer, and I park, and I go in, and I'm kind of like, okay, what's the new goat rodeo we're into now? So I walk in there, and this guy starts his speech up. And now, mind you, we're on a 60-foot right away through the woods, and I don't remember how many miles it went, but it was a decent sized job. So it's all been right away. The trees have been cleared and such. So walk in there. The guy starts this office. These are really, really endangered, and we got to be really careful to make sure we're being careful about the turtles, right? In the middle of how many thousand acres of woods, and we got a 60-foot right away through the middle of it. So I want to put this into perspective here, which I am an animal lover. I believe in protecting the planet probably more than anyone, but you got to have common sense. So he goes, I parked my truck, and I saw 5 turtles walking up to the job trailer. And I'm thinking, the guy walked no more than 30 feet and saw 5 turtles. And I looked at him, and I said, of course, as owner of the company, I'm looked at him, and I'm like, you walked 30 feet in here to the job trailer, and you saw 5 damn turtles? I'm like, how can these things possibly be endangered? And
that's a great story.
And everybody that was in the trailer, they're like, shut up, Donna, shut up. Because they're like, we got to get through this training in order to do our job. And I'm like, how stupid are people to believe that seeing 5 endangered turtles in walking no more than 30 feet, this place is crawling with turtles. They have more turtles than roaches in a dive. Okay. I'm telling you, there's turtles that they're not 5 damn turtles. That's all I can say in 30 feet. Not
I like
that's That's the government. I figured with the ham radio, not to get off subject, but
No,
I
that's what
figured
we do.
I would just like if there's an emergency and everything crashes, no one's going to check if you have a license or not. So
Yeah.
just use it.
One of the things that we talked about yesterday that is important with ham radio, though, is if you get the license, it gives you the ability to practice with it when it's not an emergency, so that you
Yeah.
can be familiar with it, so that when it is an emergency, you're not having to try and hunt around to try and figure out how to configure your radio, who to
Yeah.
talk to, all of that kind of thing.
No, it
Lets
makes
you
sense.
build your communications network before something happens.
Yeah. Well, I think
Yes, that's how I feel about regulation. But anyhow, let's continue.
Yeah.
Get back
Right.
on-
So going back to the subject, you know, the thing that pops into my mind, Donna, would be the medications that people are on, the medications you're on, because I'm just going to assume you're not going to be able to get medicines. And a lot of medications, if you stop them abruptly, you could have some serious problems. That's really concerning to me. And I don't know that I know the answer, but I would probably look up each medication you're on and see which ones that you could stop. And it's not going to cause a serious problem. And anything that could be possibly used as a substitute that you may have or be able to get, that's natural that you could stock up on, because it's kind of hard to stock up on medications, depending on your insurance and finances. Financially, if you can do it, and if your insurance will let you, get 3 months worth or more of your medications. And none of this is medical advice. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. And
Well, no, we don't give medical advice here. So please, the disclaimer.
no medical
Check with
advice.
your professional medical person.
Yeah. So, and then they make these little pill cutters. I don't know if anyone's familiar with those.
Yes.
But you may have to like titrate yourself off of certain things. Certain other medications, you're on them, you're not going to be able to get off them. But antidepressants, which is probably the number one drug, one of the number one drugs people are on. In an emergency situation, if you just kind of ran out of them, and you'd be in a bit of a mess. Probably not going to kill you, but mentally you'd be a little messed up. And if you had one of those pill cutters, you could cut them, and because it could cause a severe rebound depression. That's the last thing you want to do, is be sitting in the corner, freaking out in some sort of emergency. So, pill cutter, maybe you can start cutting them and cut down, not now, but in an emergency situation. And blood pressure medication, same type of thing. So really, if you're on blood pressure medication, which I don't know, I wish I had looked this stuff before, but there's a huge percentage. Most people you meet are probably on something, if they're over 40, like a blood pressure medication.
Really?
Watch what you eat, have a plan for each one. Okay. Have a plan for each one. And try and stock up on things. Also, while we're on medications, I think it'd be great if you can get your hands on some antibiotics have at home and some over-the-counter medications. And I would have made a list, but I've thought about it a little bit. And
well, let's do that. Let's do that next time, and then we'll have a
All
list.
right.
I really wanted to introduce everyone to you, and quite honestly, I think that having somebody who's more of a friend than doctor showing up with a white coat is a lot. It's a better thing. It's approachable, and then be able to ask some questions.
And even just having the general guidance like that about thinking ahead on your medications that you're on, I think is really helpful, because there's a lot of people that probably don't even consider that. Yeah,
that's something to really consider. And I'll keep going on. I won't give a list or anything, but I would go to the CVS or Myers or something and get your hands on just some stuff, some common sense stuff. A nasal decongestant and a nasal steroid spray, and then not a nasal steroid, a nasal decongestant like Afrin is great, because if you get a cold, you want to keep the nasal mucosa open so it doesn't turn into a sinus infection or lung infection. So just using something like Afrin, I can give talks on all that stuff. A cough medication. I was talking to Donna when I talked to you last week, and I said a bottle of bleach can do amazing things.
Oh, that's cool. Let's go there. What do you do with a bottle of bleach?
So a bottle of bleach, everyone should have a few gallons of bleach in their house. Just straight bleach, nothing with scent in it or anything like that, because bleach, I mean, we used to use it in the day when people had bad burns, bad infections of the legs, diabetics and stuff. We'd use bleach soaks, which would be like I forgot the percentage, I'll look it up, but like a 10% bleach solution with water, and you just put it on gauze and lay it over the wound, and they work great.
Okay, so you need gauze too for that.
Bleach is a great disinfectant, diluted bleach. You can also use it, obviously, to purify water. There's a lot of uses for bleach, but medically, I'd have bleach.
We actually looked, I think, last week at different ways to produce bleach if you need it.
Yeah, you have a bleach generator. That's a 3% salt solution in water, and then run any current through it. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as the ratios are correct.
2 to 4 volts or something like that through a solution of salt water, and it turns it into, I believe it's sodium hypochlorite.
Yeah, that's bleach.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Something like that. We'd have to look at the details, but it's kind of cool. You can that technology is available, and relatively easy to use.
You can do it the way that I used to make colloidal silver. And so the way you make colloidal silver is you use 3 9-volt batteries, and you attach them together. So you want to connect them, and then use alligator clips. And I would clip it to silver rods and put that into water, distilled water, and then just let it cook. And you can make colloidal silver that way, which is another way to treat stuff. But bleach, same thing, only you'd want to use like stainless steel rods for bleach. You wouldn't want to use the silver.
Yeah, stainless steel, or I think graphite worked too, if I remember right.
So I'm hoping that people don't have to make it, because you can go buy it right now, like really cheap. And I know, Donna, most of your listeners are probably preppers. At least have a mindset that something could go wrong and happen. And so I'm just get a gallon of it instead of making it.
Now you got it.
In emergency, we can make it with batteries.
Yeah, now you got an option. So take your option right now. Well, you have it. Prepare a little bit.
Most people probably have it too. Most people probably have it, and if they don't, they can knock on a neighbor's door and ask for a cup of bleach. But bleach is really good to have. And then, your topical antibiotic tubes, things like that. A 2% hydrocortisone would be great. A tube of steroid ointment. A bad case of poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac can spread, and you'd be in a whole world of hurt if you didn't have access to a hospital or oral steroids. That would be on my list of prescription medications. Antibiotics, and we can go through this next time. I'll create a better list, but just to have, obviously, your medications as much as you can get, and some antibiotics like Z-Pak, Zithromax, and ciprofloxacin are really good, and maybe a penicillin based, a cephalosporin antibiotic. And the more of those you have, I mean, what a better thing to barter with too, or help your neighbors out. You can die from really simple things without antibiotics, and we just don't even realize it anymore because antibiotics are so easy to get. But if you don't have them, a simple sinus infection can kill you. A simple cut on your arm or leg can kill you. People used to die from that stuff. And then a great first aid kit would be good. But I guess, like Ralph was saying with the ham radio, it's hard you got to really practice, because having a first aid kit and, like Karen said, running to a car crash and not knowing what to do, you could cause more harm maybe than good. But, the basic stuff for a first aid kit, a tourniquet, Gauze, tons of gauze. You can't have too much gauze, sterile gauze, gloves, things like that. Tweezers, scalpels, all that stuff. And then there's suturing. And I can give a visual on how to suture. That's something everybody should know how to do.
That'd be great. I mean, we could do this like, we talked about doing this like a weekly type thing. And take some. I've got the next 2 weeks for me are a little convoluted because I'm going to the National Presidential Nominating Convention for the Constitution Party. So I'm going to be at that following, not this coming week, but the following week. But my schedule's going to be off. But I would love to do this every Friday at 9:00, and let's pick a topic and go through it and learn something so that we can take control a little bit of our common sense health.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
suturing
it.
would be a really, really interesting one to learn.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you mentioned tourniquets.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what a tourniquet is, how it can be done properly. I learned in the last time I took a first aid class, because it used to be you would put it on, and I think the wisdom was, or at least a lot of people think, that you should let it out occasionally so that there is some blood going into the area. And they said, no, you don't. You let it, you tighten that down and you don't touch it. And it won't result in the loss of a limb, that the medical professionals in the surgical room will handle it. And what if you don't have a surgical room?
Yeah.
What do you do after you tie that tourniquet? So having the ability and the knowledge to do some suturing, or how can you do a minor surgical procedure? How do you solve a sucking chest wound? Those kinds of things that can be done at home if you have the wisdom.
Yeah, 100%
would be great.
No, that's really good. That's a very good point. And just quickly with the tourniquet, it all depends on the situation. If you're going to let some blood flow or not, if you're, can't get to a hospital, what are you going to do? So there's different situations, and also depends on where the tourniquet is. Tourniquet's only going to work on the limbs, but you should stop the bleeding. We should talk about how to stop bleeding at some point. People can bleed out, and you got to be able to stop it.
I heard tampons are great for that. The military
depending on where it is, yeah.
Tampons.
But even knowing how to use a hemostat properly, how to find bleeding, which may be difficult to show on the screen, but we could find something. But you want to stop. They teach us in medicine, all bleeding stops, no matter what. You want to be the one to stop it, though. So, yeah, we gotta talk about the use of hemostats, the use of sutures, under the skin to stop bleeding, the use of a tourniquet, and the use of compression bandages like a tampon, things like that. It just depends on where the wound is and how bad it is. But just if somebody were to cut themselves, with an axe or a knife, in an emergency, you should know how to deal with that. And you can't leave the tourniquet on for a week, because I'm for sure they're going to lose their arm. So you should be able to stop bleeding, even if it's a very deep cut in the hand or arm. We can go through how to do that.
Well, let's ask everybody out there too. What do they know and what do they want to see? Because I've got some people on the chat here that let me go back, and I'm going to read some because they're lighting it up over here. Charlotte and Lob and Tom are lighting it up. Obama's healthcare and Whitnuts, she always calls Whitmer Whitnuts. Mental health has destroyed health industries, along with DHHS and many NGOs getting BS funding to hijack money systems. Lab naturopaths and holistic doctors have long lists of waiting people trying to see them. Charlotte, government has no right in health care or schools. Everything they touch turns to turns to
Crap.
shit. Abuse by the NGOs and lobbyists and nonprofits, sucking money out of the system for clown shows. FEMA, Red Cross, CPS. Yeah, all these people, Red Cross and CPS, they're all into child trafficking. And so
yeah, they're into all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
This is crazy. And people take so many meds because they a lot of times have to put on other meds to counteract the meds that they're taking. Medical marijuana is now recreational. DHS got a grant in Livingston for medical license. Why? Oh, that's kind of interesting. Why would they have gotten a license by DHS?
Yeah, that's
That's
DHS
crazy.
DHS is in our systems. They manage our elections. They're everywhere. We just don't even realize it. Well, it's coming more to light now because of people like you and Tori.
It's like careful stocking up on pills from Tom. They do expire over time. You know what? I look at that though. It's kind of like one of those things that, that's a good thing to be aware of. But even if they're a little bit expired, it's not like I'm going to turn them. I would think it would.
Well, here's the deal. Just like everything else, it's corrupted. The system's corrupt. So they don't want you stocking up on pills. So they're going to have an early expiration date on them. But if you need them, someone once told me, a pharmacist a long time ago, that these pills will last 3 or 4 times whatever the expiration date is. So you just use common sense and keep them in a dry place, or you use those dry pack things. And I guarantee you, if you needed them, they'd probably work, and they're probably not going to hurt you. It's not like they're going to change into some other drug, by sitting in a bottle, especially a sealed bottle. So I wouldn't worry about the expiration date in an emergency. This is not medical advice. Check with your doctor first, your pharmacist.
Yeah.
But listen, if my arm was, if I had a horrible infection, I had an antibiotic that said it was expired, I'm taking it.
Well, and additionally too, if you're stocking up on medications that you're regularly taking, just follow a rotation regimen too, and rotate out kind of the
save a few.
Rotate out things as they're getting older and
and you can find the doctors to write prescriptions for you. I'm not talking about scheduled drugs, just non-scheduled medications like blood pressure and things like that. Just do a phone, conference with a doctor, an online Zoom meeting, and get your medications refilled. And they don't know how many times you're doing it. Go to a few of them. Your insurance company will, but pay cash for the important things that we'll talk about. And it really scares me, Donna, the number of medications people are on and what happens when you stop them. And one of the people said something about, how medicine and the money and stuff, it's so screwed up today. And we're finding out that so many of these studies that these pharmaceutical companies do to get their drugs approved were manipulated and faked, and it's just a disaster. So you don't even know if you're taking the right thing anymore. And so many of these medications, you just can't stop them, and you're addicted to them, and then you have problems, and then they put you on something else. And most doctors have become pill pushers, and it's because there is no focus on health in medicine. There's no money for it, and there's no time for it, for doctors.
They're getting kickbacks, and they're still getting them, even though they said they can't
from
get
the pharmaceutical companies. Yeah,
you bet
but
they
I'm
are
talking about being healthy, just keeping people healthy. There's no such thing as keeping people healthy anymore. It's okay, you got high blood pressure. Let's not figure out, why you have high blood pressure. Here's your pill. Take this, and it's usually going to require a second one. And your cholesterol's high. Here's your cholesterol medication. Oh, you're sad. You've been sad the last few days, because your pet died or whatever. Here's a pill for that. Well, now you're really screwed. These are medications that you just can't stop. And they just keep adding up and adding up and adding up. So, it's a big problem. That scares me a lot.
Yeah, this is another reason why a lot of people are turning to naturopathic types of approaches, because number one, they're looking at the root cause and trying to resolve that, but also they're looking to nature for the answer. And So if you're on a pharmaceutical to, let's say, lower blood pressure, well, then it's worthwhile looking at what types of foods can you eat that lower blood pressure.
Yes, exactly.
Or
Have
what
a
is
plan
the,
for each pill that you're on. Have a plan. Because
yeah,
you're right,
if you,
there are things.
but if you understand the basics behind the medicine that they're applying, you may be able to find a herbal approach or a homeopathic approach.
Yes.
I've got remedies in a drawer that I look in there now and then, and I'm like, wow, I've accumulated a lot more than I thought I had.
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about how to use all of them, but I'm learning. And every time I
Yes.
learn something, I'm like, oh, well, I could use. Let me tell you, I had a skin tag removed from an eyelid. And when I went to get that done, the doctor said, you're going to have a black eye, just so you know. And
black
so
eye.
when I went to get it, I took Arnica that morning. I took it before the doctor walked into the room. I took it immediately after, and I took it that night when I got home. And you would never know that night and the next day that anything had happened, because
Yeah, that's
Arnica
great.
is known for helping with bruises. And
Yeah, that's great.
you can get these remedies for $5 to $10, and they'll last you a long time. There's multiple ways that you can use them, and even stretch that out. So if people have just a first aid kit with homeopathic supplies, there's a lot that could be done with that, and it may not solve a problem that a specific medication is applied to, but it might, and you just won't
Yeah, no,
know unless you
absolutely.
try,
And all of us
Yeah.
here are into like the natural remedies and stuff. Like I home birthed my kids. I was like so done with this whole medical thing. And my kids are mid to late 30s. So it's like, well, I've got one yet that's in her late 20s, but she's my special needs daughter. But all my kids are older, but I've always been into natural remedies. So I'm going to give everybody a gimme here because we talked about poison ivy. Poison ivy, the natural remedy for poison ivy, whether you have it or you came in contact with poison ivy, jewel weed, it grows right next to poison ivy in the woods. So if you get into poison ivy, look around for some jewel weed, rub it on the poison ivy, and that's the natural remedy, because God usually has two things together or similar, or they'll grow together like companions, and one is the counter to the other. So check out jewel weed if you've got problems with poison ivy. I don't get poison
that really
ivy,
works.
but
That really works. And that's something to really consider in Michigan, because it is extremely common to get poison ivy. And in an emergency situation, poison ivy can kill you. Poison oak, poison sumac, if it's not treated. And I can talk about I don't know all the herbal remedies for all these different things, but I do know the pharmaceutical ones, and steroids would work great. But there are just common sense precautions to take, and how to deal with it after you've got it on you, because it spreads not because of the vesicles. It spreads because the oil stays on you, and people don't realize it's oil. It's thick like tar, and God forbid it gets in your eyes or ears. That could be a problem. But the natural remedy is good to talk about, and that stuff does work.
That's similar to a skunk spray, by the way.
Topical steroid will work better. Topical steroid will probably work a little better. Have both.
There you go.
Well,
this is
go ahead. The time. I'm sorry. There's a little delay on my end, but the time to look at the natural remedies for natural alternatives, I should say, for medications that you're probably, I'm going to use the words, addicted to, because when you stop.
Gonna guess David got a call in on the other side, so that sometimes messes up the stream here. Are you still there? All right, let's see. Hang on. Are you there? There you go. We'll get him back in here for a minute for a few last words, but I think this is all good stuff to talk about. This is all important stuff to talk about, and I think we're going to get explored even further. And I know Karen and myself and Ralph, we're kind of like into the natural things, and we probably have a huge history in that area because we've all been ornery about it for a very long time, and not drinking the Kool-Aid in any way, shape, or form. So I think it'll be fun to go through this with Dr. David here and look at things that we can do. I really thought he had some great advice this morning, didn't you guys?
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff to think about before stuff happens. You know?
Yeah, I think he was probably, sorry, Ralph.
That's kind of where we're at right now is, things are currently working. So now is the time to prepare.
Yeah,
it's
I think
something
that's
to worry about or fear. It's something to take action,
Okay, I've got David on the phone here. So we do this once in a while. This is what we do. It's on live. It's always live, and so there's always things like this that happen, and it's not a big deal. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up here. We got any last words that you have, David?
I think I'm back on, huh?
Well, I've got you on my phone right now. I don't see you on the broadcast.
Oh no, okay.
So we just do it by phone. That's okay.
All right.
Everybody can hear you, so you're good.
Did you hear anything I said before?
No, I didn't. So let's go.
Okay, so if we could, if doctors could, practice the way they want, that it would be best to try the natural remedies before they put you on a prescription drug, especially one that you can become addicted to. And you use the word addicted, meaning that if you stop it, you're going to have some sort of rebound problem. But we don't have that, but the time to see if natural remedies work and if you're on a prescription medication is not when you're run out. It's before, so you have an alternative plan.
Yeah, and I think that's good words. It's always be prepared because there's no guarantee for tomorrow. I mean, we've gotten real used to these systems, but it's history repeats, and we've gone through this before with watching civilizations crash and watching economic means crash and watching different systems crash, and nothing lasts forever here. It just doesn't. So, but the only thing that's true that lasts forever is God Almighty. So let's go ahead and I'm going to say a prayer and then a few last words from everybody. And then we're going to start our day. And then we'll come back and we're going to do this again until we uncover we turn over every single rock and find out every little bit of truth. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very much this day ahead of us. I ask your blessings on David, on Ralph, and on Karen. And I'm so thankful for really great friends that we can stand together with to walk through this life. It's an amazing adventure. And we are so grateful that you've chosen us for such a time as this to be here with all the things that we learn and such. It's just extraordinary. Thank you so much. And I ask that you would bless every single person out there. Give them the courage to follow the truth and what you're putting into them and where you want to lead them. We're willing to follow you. We want you in charge, and we love you so very much. You're good all the time. Thank you for this day and the weekend ahead of us. Keep everybody safe and let them know that they're loved. You're a great friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you. We love you so very much. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. With that said, a few last words, guys.
Now's the time to prepare, and it's even if we don't have a crash, it's just being smarter and better prepared is always a good thing. You're never wasting your time.
Karen?
I think that's great advice. And just like we were talking about gardening and canning, things like that yesterday, it doesn't hurt to get a book or two. I've got a lost book of herbal remedies right beside me. I haven't even cracked it yet. My husband's had it for probably years, but I know I have it. And Ralph has talked about that too, that printed books are a great resource to have on hand, even if you don't have the time right now to study them. If you got a few bucks here and there, get a first aid book.
Ralph?
Yeah, and none of this is stuff to be afraid of or worried about. This is this is not something to fear. This is something to use this as motivation to prepare now while you can.
Yeah, we don't have anything to fear because God's in control. So with that said, here we go to that part of the show, boys and girls. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com. And because I'm the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I don't concede to liars, cheats, and thieves in the 2022 election. And we need to go back and write the 2020 election too. For we have our rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, who was deprived of his office, and it was an attack on every single American and every single voice of every single American by dilution of our weight of our votes and such, and outright theft and cheating and fraud. So we're gonna stick with this. So with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. It's going to be a great one. It's a choice. It's your mindset. No matter, it's your connection to God, your mindset, in your heart. You can have confidence and walk through anything because God will see you from now, from this step right to the end. You don't have to be afraid of anything. Just walk in there and do what you need to do and have lots of courage, but follow God in everything that you do. And have a great day. And we will be talking to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Great. Love it. Thank you.